Hi guys, it's Ebony from What a Stitch Up, and today I'm going to be showing you the top zipper hack for the Dayna pack from Linds Handmade. So I've been getting messages for this one asking if I can do a tutorial for the top hack. So I finally got around to it, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. So there are a couple of different ways you can do the zipper ends. In this particular video, I have done zipper tabs, as I think they are a quicker, sort of less fiddly way of doing the zip, but there are other ways if you have a preferred method as well. I've also used on here, I've used rectangle rings instead of D rings. As I'm choosing not to use the swivel clips, I'm actually going to attach my strap straight into the rectangle ring, and then I'm going to have a buckle that attaches at the back. So depending on which way you're going to do it, just make sure you double check and you're using the right hardware so that that one works. All right, enough talking, let's get started. Here are all my pieces ready to assemble the Dayna pack. So I've got one of my back pieces cut in vinyl, and I've used that pattern piece to cut another two pieces the same in my lining fabric. I've got two of the wing pieces cut mirror, my front bottom section in my exterior fabric, and one in my lining fabric as well. And I've added a woven interfacing to both of these pieces, and I've marked all my center points, a piece for my strap connectors and the back of the pocket lining. I've got a little scrap here for my zipper tabs and the front top piece and the lining top piece. Now normally the lining would be cut a little bit shorter, but for the hacked version we want to keep them both the same, so I've used the exterior piece to cut both of those. I've got my number 5 zipper tape matched to my fabric. We need 2 number 5 zipper pulls and 2 D-rings. I'm actually using rectangle rings for this one because I'm doing a different strap, but I explain later in the video why you should be using D-rings if you're using swivel connectors. So I've got all the pieces here just to assemble the front section. So I've cut my zip just a little bit longer than my width of my front bottom piece. I haven't attached the zipper pull yet, I will do that afterwards. But I'm going to grab my zipper tape and put that one face down, right sides together with my bottom exterior piece, and clip that one in place. Now I'm going to grab the lining piece and right sides together, face down, I'm going to line that one up and clip that one in place as well. And then I'm going to sew across the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I'm going to fold it around, so wrong sides together, and press those pieces out of the way. We will be top stitching this, but we'll do the other section first. So I'm going to grab my top exterior piece, line it up, and then flip it down. So I'm going to make sure that center markings are all lined up. I'm going to clip that piece in place. Then you're going to take your lining piece and line it up matching with the top exterior piece and clip that one in place along the zip. Now we're going to stitch across the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now we can top stitch along both sides of the zip. To make the darts in the pocket, we're going to grab our liner and right sides together, we're going to fold it so the edges meet where we've taken out that little snip. And we're going to do that for both darts on the lining piece and then both darts on the exterior piece, making sure you're doing right sides together. And now we're just going to sew those darts shut, making sure to backstitch, especially on the folded edge. Now in Lynn's original tutorial, she says to trim your seam allowances, but I just wanted to show you a different way to do it as well, and the way I prefer to do it, which is nesting the seams. So this way I think it just helps the seams to stay nice and flat. So I'm going to fold one seam one way and fold the other one the other and line up the two seams in the middle. I know it's probably a little bit hard to see there, but both of my seams are directly on top of each other. So the lining goes to the right, the exterior seam is folded to the left, and both of the seams are directly on top of each other. And it tucks very, very nicely just into that curved shape. Now I'm going to add the zipper pull. So I always like to double check which way you want to open. I always like to open it towards the right and close it pulling to the left. So I'm going to put my zipper pull on the right hand side. Now we're going to attach the back piece of the pocket lining. So I'm going to put the lining pieces right sides together and line up the center markings top and bottom and clip all the way around the outside. Now we're going to sew all the way around. You don't need to worry about the top because that'll get closed in the next step. You can see it's starting to get some shape thanks to the darts in that front pocket. To add the side wing pieces, you work out which one goes on which side. And now we're going to line them up just with the straight section of the bag. So Lindsay says to leave a tiny little bit hanging over the top and clip it. And then we're going to clip it just along the straight section. Now when you get to the bottom bit where it starts to curve around, we're just going to keep that piece going straight and not worry about the bit that hangs off the bottom. And then we're just going to sew in a straight line all the way and straight off the bottom of the piece. We don't want to curve it around the corner. If we were to curve it around, then when you fold it, you're going to end up with this weird pucker bit. So we're just going to go straight off and we're going to clip our other piece on the other side the same. So I'm just measuring how much I left overhanging at the top and clip it in place the same as the first piece. So now I'm just going to sew down both sides in a nice straight line straight off the bottom. And once you fold it out, you'll see you've got a nice straight line there. So once you get the bottom and you've got the darts, as I was sewing, I was just pulling the darts out of the way so we don't sew over those and ruin the beautiful shape we've created. Now we can just trim off these little extra bits that we have left over. I'm just going to trim off the ends of my zipper tape as well. And then I'm just going to use my ruler and my rotary cutter to trim off the top so we've got a nice straight top. I had to do it from the back because of the bulk of the zips. And yes, I need to replace the blade in my rotary cutter. Now we're just going to top stitch down on our vinyl pieces here, making sure our seams are pointed towards the outside. Now everything up until here has been as per the original pattern instructions. So this section is where the top hack starts. So I've cut an extra piece of zipper tape for the top hack, and this piece I've cut at 9 inches, and I've got a little scrap here that I'm going to use for my zipper tabs. But first of all, we need to make sure that we put on our zipper pull. I'm going to fold and cut this little scrap into 2 pieces. And I'm going to place them right sides down on top of my zipper pull at each end and just clip to hold it in place. And then I'm going to sew across the end with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then fold it back and then top stitch along and do that for both ends. Now when adding the top zip, you really want to make sure that both zips are going in the same direction, so just double check that first and then flip your zip down, right sides together, and center it along the top piece and clip it in place. Now we're going to take our first lining piece and right sides together, we're going to add our lining piece into the clips. And we're going to sew along our zipper with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And just like we did with the front pocket, we're going to fold the lining out of the way. We will top stitch this, but we're just going to put the other side on first. So I'm going to grab the vinyl, which is the back of our bag, and I'm going to lay that one down, flip over our bag so it's right sides together, and center the zip along the top of this one and clip it in place. We're going to add our second piece of lining, line it up, clip it, and sew along the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So after adding the second piece of lining, I have opened it out and top stitched all the way down both sides of my zip. These two sections here were a little bit thick, so I used my hump jumper and pressed those down a bit before I started. Now often there seems to be this little bit on the side that doesn't quite match up, and we definitely don't want the lining to be bigger than the exterior. So what I'm going to do is fold the bag how it will be when it's completed, try and line it up as best I can, and then I'm just going to trim off the sides where it doesn't quite match up, just so our lining sits quite nicely on the inside once it's completed. Next, for the strap connector piece, I've taken my piece of fabric and I have pressed it in half, and then going to fold both sides in to meet that center line. And then fold in half again. And then I'm going to top stitch nice and close to the edge down both sides of this piece. Then I'm going to cut it in half and thread them through my, in my case, rectangle rings, but normally they would be D rings. Now we want to make sure that our lining pieces are out of the way, so we're just attaching this to the front exterior. And I'm going to line up these pieces so that they are touching the top seam where we add the top zipper, because we need the room on the side to be able to sew around the perimeter of our bag. So I'm going to make sure there's at least that 1/4 inch on the side here. And do the same with the one on the other side. And then I'm just going to baste these in place. Now I'm going to grab the two pieces of lining and put them right sides together, and then the exterior pieces right sides together. And we're going to grab the sort of corner bits and we're going to match them up so they're nice and neat and clip them in place. And I'm going to make sure the little zipper end tab that we made is pulled in towards the lining side. And then I'm going to clip that corner piece of the lining in the same way. And do the same for the other side first. So start with the exterior. Make sure that zipper tab bit is pulled towards the lining and clip that in place. Then I'm just going to finish clipping all the way around the lining and the exterior. When you get to the exterior, just make sure the darted section that sort of pokes out is tucked up nicely, because you don't want to catch that in that bottom seam, so just push it in so it's out of the way. And then we're going to sew around, leaving a gap for our turn hole. So this little area here can be quite tight when you're sewing along the edge of your strap connector and the ring in there. So what I did was made sure my hand was on the inside and I grabbed the ring with my finger and just pulled it sort of out of the way as I was sewing next to it. And then on the other side, I pull it out of the way, I sew up right to the edge of it, push it down, make sure it's flat and straight, and then sew over it. Now I'm just going to trim down my corners and some of these seams, and I used my pinking shears on the cotton section. And now I'm just going to reach my hand inside so I can turn it inside out. I'm just going to grab a corner and poke it in so I can grab it with the hand inside and just slowly turn it and pull it out through that opening. So I'm just spending some time poking out all the corners and the seams, rolling them between my fingers just to get them to sit nicely. And now it's time to close up the turn hole. I like to just put a clip on each end so I know when I'm sewing where to start and stop sewing. And then I just fold in the edges our seam allowance so they meet nicely, and just put a couple of clips to hold it in place. Now I'm just going to close the opening by sewing as close to the edge as I can, making sure to catch both layers. Pop your lining back inside, and the bag is done. We have our main pocket here, and we've got the original front darted pocket as well. Now we just need to add the straps. If you wanted to use these swivel clips on your strap, you can't use the rectangle rings here because they'll turn and twist. So you need to make sure if you're going to use these that you do use D-rings on the strap connectors here. But for this bag, I've chosen not to use the swivel clips. I'm actually going to have one of the old school buckles that connect at the back. So I'm going to be adding my webbing straight into these rectangle rings here. So I'll thread this through and sew the end shut. And then once my buckle arrives, I will thread it through one end of the buckle and sew that shut. Do the same on the other side, but also including a strap adjuster as well. So once my buckle arrives, I'll be able to finish this bag. So you've got the option of using the buckle and the webbing into the rectangle rings, or like the original pattern, use D-rings and swivel clips to attach your strap. Well, this is about as finished as my bag's going to get while I wait for my buckle to arrive in the mail. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial on the top zipper hack for the Dayna pack. If you want to see any more of my future videos, don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to have some more videos up soon. Thanks for watching.